Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Part two. Join a Polish beer too. There's a few things I still want to talk about. I think we got plenty with two. We touched on a lot of things already, but maybe dive a little bit more into some other stuff. So one of the things we want to talk about, you start on through the connection with Sean on Verrazano, the Verrazano racing team, whatever officially it's called. You had a year on NYCC, which is the NYCC racing extension. We've talked a lot about NYCC as like a big club and organization that has that brings a lot of people into road cycling and riding in general, and then they have a racing team outlet, which is a CRCA team as well. And you did your CRCA racing through that, right? Which Verrazano is not a CRCA team, and then now you're on E2 Valley. So from the outside, 3 different teams, 3 different cultures, probably a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes people look at this in terms of more of like professional career trajectories, like moving up on teams in there or moving things. But a lot of times I think in the amateur cycling community, it's about maybe finding a team to start with and then moving up to a more racing focused team. But also sometimes it happens through personal connections, right? So how is that for you, and how do you feel like you've got different perspectives through those teams, or is it like can you tell us a little bit more about how those moves happen, and then also what you found in each team that was maybe interesting, what you learned or whatever, and where you are right now and how that came about?
So I mean, I started with Verrazano simply just because, like you said, I met Sean, and like he was like my introduction into the community basically. So it was like a natural transition. But then when I transitioned to NYCC and then eventually E2 Valley, it was for reasons that were, like you said, it involves like the way that the team meshes, right? When you have fellow friends that train with you, it's different than when you just show up to a race and you're like, all right guys, what are we doing today? You know what I mean? So like I transitioned to NYCC because my good friend Michelle Kanzi and Brian Mariscal at the time, we were riding together all the time. So it only made sense that the 3 boys got onto the same team, right? They pulled me onto the team and stuff like that. Similar thing happened.
At least one of those guys you just mentioned is now also on E2 Value, right?
Yes, Michelle is on E2 Value, and the opposite happened. I pulled him onto that team.
Okay.
I think it goes down to the fact that like for team strategies to work, you need to know who you're racing with, and you need to trust that you can trust them. You know what I mean? Like when you're a sprinter, you need to know that you can relax the whole time and someone's going to deliver you to the end, right? When you're in the same role, right? You gotta know that, my other friends, my other people on my team are gonna take care of everything that I should be doing, right? And because you get to a point in racing where everyone is fit, right? Yeah. But it's really the ones who know how to race properly that win, right? And so I think that's where that speaks to. I think I'm still finding like my best place in racing and like my best community, but I think that's just like inherent in racing. Because we all have the same goals, but a lot of factors change, right? For example, me being in Queens is a big factor.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like that's why I couldn't, like, for example, do all the NYCC morning training camps that they do. You know what I mean?
When I see you.
Yes, enjoy your evening.
Thank you so much. I couldn't like be part of a few of the teams that I was on just because like it's a hell to get from Queens all the way into the city.
It's location too, right?
Yeah. On top of also med school and all that stuff, it's a balance. But when you find that team, I think that's what really gels. I mean, I hear that from the Butcher Box boys. They're a very tight community that like really works together, and so because of that, I know they're going to have a lot of success. And I feel like that's very important in cycling as a team.
It's about the community within those teams, the atmosphere within those teams. That you, like you said, you gel with the people. You don't have to be the same person, but when you maybe riding together a little bit often, like two, of course, you want to have some fun, or you want to just have good conversations at least, right? Even if you maybe New York City, it's always a bit terrible to meet people, even without COVID, I should always say, but like you have to always like commute 45 minutes to meet someone.
Right.
Like, it always takes a while, but if you're a little closer, maybe that can help. Totally, and I think you're making a good point too, that when you're racing together and you are a little bit more serious about it, it's not just like let's show up and ride bikes together and have a coffee after. I think there's teams have that approach cool. That's totally fine. And that might be a good fit for a lot of people. but you might also be more interested in racing. Like you said, then if you trust each other and say, but you might also have the conflict between, especially in a team that's maybe a lot of Cat 3s, like everybody wants to upgrade, everybody wants to get points, and then you have to trust that you're going to get your opportunity, right? And you're not always having to race like a solo racer, but you're within a team, but you're racing just for yourself, and that's a danger too, right? That you're just thinking too much of your own objectives, and that influences the extent to which you can be a team player, right? And
which I think is inherent. I think in these lower categories, like I remember talking to a couple of friends like a couple weeks ago, and it's like talking about strategy, and I'm like, it's a Cat 4 race, like just be the first one across the finish line, you'll be fine. Like, don't worry about your teammates.
And I think that, you know,
no shame, but like we all are developing these things, and at that lower level, like it's just not there.
Yeah, it's not there. I think you're right too that it doesn't need to be there, right? I think there are some teams that take that very seriously when they ride like a team as a 3 or 4, and I think they can go for that. I think that's totally cool. Like we have some new guys who Cat 4 right now. They ride to some extent like a team, but in the end they also want to get the results, and I think they should also try to go for their own results, right? And you learn a lot also from maybe not. You learn a lot from trying to race like a team, but you're also learning a lot from just riding for yourself. And like I said, it's really hard to coordinate that as you're newer, and it's to some extent becomes easier when you have gotten some upgrade points, or you're 1 or 2 to sacrifice yourself a little bit more for someone else when you don't need that pressure from the upgrades, and you almost become a more, I don't want to say better racer, but you become like a more balanced racer and somebody who's willing to ride more for a team, right? And that makes sense that you have
racer, right?
Yeah, a conscious racer, whatever. Or less, you don't have to be focused on yourself as much, because you have other people you can race with that are going to get the opportunities, and you're going to get your opportunity because it's a different scenario, right? You're not. You have to upgrade your Cat 1. Like, yes, you want to get some good results and look good probably too, and want to be on the podium and want to make some money or whatever. Everyone does, right? But when I think it's one less kind of incentive for riding for yourself that's taken away, and that can make in some ways for better racing too, right? But at the same time, those 3-4 races can be very dynamic too, because everybody is in it to do well, you know. And there aren't some people who just don't care, you know. So that's a good thing too.
Hell yeah.
I don't even know how we got here, but I'm excited. I can talk about this for hours, and you're going to see some of that play out again at Randall's Island on Sunday, hopefully. So yes, the team. So you were in NYCC, and then did you follow Sean back to E2 Value, or how did that come about?
Yeah, mainly. Yeah, I followed Sean into E2 Value, but also I just felt like I could be part of more of a community with E2 Value.
Yeah.
Not that there was anything wrong with NYCC, but a big factor was the commute, right?
Yeah.
And so
NYCC again, while a lot of these teams are not technically based in one place, but NYCC is more like Northern Manhattan, Bronx, kind of that area.
Riding 9W on weekends.
Right, 9W, right by kind of the George Washington Bridge. I feel like, I don't even know, but it very much feels like that club is centralized, is there. It's kind of centered there, right? Sure. And then there's other teams who are like Casino, who feel like more like Brooklyn Queens teams, and E2 Value is more of a,
I don't even know.
Yeah, spread out too, but Brooklyn more probably, right? Yeah.
I would say Brooklyn, yeah. But I mean, for example, I ride predominantly on the LIE on weekends, right? I think that's a big divide, right? People who ride the LIE and people who ride 9W.
Yeah.
Those are two camps, right? And
so, translate the LIE part is
Long Island Expressway.
Yes.
There's a beautiful service road along that LIE.
Yes, it's this weird. I've only done it once or twice, and you're on this 3-lane service road that's next to an expressway. That is also an expressway, but it's not. But it's a bizarre thing. Yeah.
It's strange, yeah.
And
off of that,
Triangle Cyclists, for example, they ride out there, which is more of a. Probably also maybe officially Long Island based, but I see that Blue Leg rides out there, and you ride out there a lot too, because when you're left for East and Queens, let's just face it, you have shitty riding to deal with for an hour. So until you are even to Prospect Park, it probably takes you half hour, 45 minutes.
Exactly, it's at least 2 hours of junk miles back and forth in between the good miles.
And we're talking proper city junk miles. Like I said, I have 25 minutes to Prospect Park, and they're shitty miles.
Yeah.
Right? I mean.
Oh my God!
I wouldn't recommend that to anybody who's just getting into cycling, right? I would say take the safest route possible, and it will take you long, but it's fine, you know. And you just you're you said somebody gets hit by a car, and that's the reality of it.
It's very serious. City riding is not safe.
You said you took Queens Boulevard all the way here today, which
Boulevard
is
of Death, literally. That's what it's called.
yeah, and that's for real, unfortunately, right? Even with, like you said, a new bike lane, which of course cars constantly parking, even if it's just for a minute, right? It forces the bikes either onto the sidewalk they're going to get yelled at, or into the street where they're going to get yelled at or honked at or driven over. I think that's a whole other conversation which we don't need to have right now. And I have to talk with other people about like the infrastructure stuff, but like you said, then because it's, yes, we're all in the same city, but also if you're in the eastern part of Queens, you're gonna gravitate more toward riding out on the Long Island Expressway, riding around northern shore of Long Island, probably a little bit.
That's where it's at.
There's some good riding there, right?
Yeah, the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, the move is when you're around in Queens is to ride the LIE until you get onto one of the like richer areas of the Long Island, and then you just go into their really nice roads.
Good pavement, maybe
beautiful
less traffic. You get a little bit of undulating terrain, right?
You feel like you're in the Great Gatsby for a little bit. Like,
which you are, right, in terms of the setting at least.
Gatsby Lane is one of the best roads. Like.
And it's pretty out there. You go for some of those coastal towns there.
Exactly,
It's
good
great.
coffee shops and all like that stuff. So it's awesome. And you know, like I remember growing up, right, before I was into cycling, I would like, I had family, friends who were like housekeepers for people in Tenafly. And I remember passing by 9W, riding on driving on 9W, and seeing all these cyclists, and I was like, wow, this is so weird. Like, why are there all these cyclists? And now that I grew up, I figured it out, right? And I have the same appreciation on the bike. Like yesterday even, like I ran into some stranger dude that I'd never met in my life, and we just had a great conversation, you know, while we were doing endurance laps. Just like chilling, you know? And it like speaks to how awesome the community is. Not only in New York, not only in Long Island or Manhattan, just overall, everyone in cycling is just so friendly. Like, it's incredible. Like, everyone's just stoked to be on the bike together.
Cool. And you get into conversation with all kinds of people, right? Just by being on the road bike and showing up on the same part of the road or in the park and
get stopped at a stoplight at the same time.
and like, you know, like Prospect Park and Central Park are kind of the heartbeat of the city in terms of the cycling, but the arteries kind of are the 9W one way and like the Long Island Expressway or that, I think probably that area, because the couple of times I've been on there, there were large groups of cyclists, and I was like, is this a group ride or are people just riding together? I mean, like, it's hard to tell, you know, and by and large, New York City, the area doesn't really have group rides, right? I started riding in Arizona where there's like so many different group rides, like some of them are like race and some of them more casual, but like this group ride culture where like it's almost a problem for the racing scene because people like race the group rides and then they don't want to do racing. And then here it's like almost the opposite, where we don't have group rides, so we all have to race because we want to ride with other people. Which you can-ish do in the parks, but really if it's not a race, really only in small groups. But out there, I think there are some groups that ride together, and even 9W, you can really ride with a group of 20, 30 people. Like, it's not the greatest, but out there you can make it happen. You can make it happen, and
we're like a big 18-wheeler, just taking up the road.
Yes, and there's space. I think you gotta own that to some extent too.
Absolutely.
So you would recommend Eastern Queens Long Island riding?
Yes, 100%. Come to Triangle Ride Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday afternoon. You'll have fun.
Do you go out and do it sometimes for more interval kind of ride? Or?
Well, see, the thing is that people that ride those
I see the rides on Strava. I've never been. So
it's like split up into the people that like to tail gun and then the people that like to race. And so I'm usually part of the people that like to push the pace at the front, and we have like a designated route that we know everyone's gonna do, and we just go for it. Sometimes people break away and like make little breakaways and stuff like that. But most of the time we stay together and it's a lot of fun.
You have probably no sprint points or anything like that.
No sprint points.
Those are too dangerous for that. Good.
But you see this full spectrum, you know. You see younger riders first time riding on clearly like not race bikes, but they're still keeping up. You know what I mean? There's like old dudes that like are professional tail gunners and like
they're really good at that.
No, 120 beats the whole time, just chilling in the back. It's kind of crazy.
If you have a big group, and then you enjoy that. You chat, you're part of the group, and I think that's the beauty of these group rides too, right? That you have people with different ability levels, and you can all chat, and maybe have a rest stop, and you can all have coffee together or whatever. And I don't know Triangle Red has that. They're not that long, and they don't
we
even
hammer the whole time.
Yeah. There you go. But I'll have to come out to one of those at some point. There's some things that I have on my bucket list for New York City cycling that I've done yet. There's quite a few Queens that I've done, unfortunately. Like Cunningham, Cena, Triangle Ride.
Cunningham is beautiful. Like I said, it's a perfect place.
Yeah, and there's still traffic, there's still cars. It gets a little bit better probably. Yeah, than here. It's not like going through Queens Boulevard, obviously, right?
Right.
So on that note, that was kind of your team transition. Happy with Each Valley for now. You're probably gonna stay with them even though you move, because
most likely.
Probably not that many team options out there.
Not that many, no.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit, like, I can't remember if that was on camera or off camera. When you move in there, maybe get involved with the local cycling community in terms of like coaching a little bit, or what are your goals there?
So well, with the sports medicine program, that's part of it is like involves coaching. So like I will be the coach, a doctor for the team of local like high school teams, college teams,
like NICA kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Football,
like, so the collegiate,
everything.
Is it NICA? Yeah, whatever the intercollegiate like mountain biking thing, whatever. Yeah,
that kind of stuff. The sports medicine right now is kind of very focused in the main, football, soccer, basketball, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So like I definitely would be trying to kind of push my way into more endurance sports, running, and triathlons, all that stuff. So we'll see where I can do those things, but that's kind of the direction I'm heading for.
Yeah, I mean most of the schools should at least have a running like a cross country team, right?
Exactly.
Or track and field team or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. And all those things just naturally transition from cycling. I mean, it's endurance is endurance at the end of the day.
Yeah, training wise, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are some coaches like who they coach triathletes and cyclists, and pro cyclists and pro triathletes at the same time, or skiers, and like in the end, like the philosophy behind it is more or less the same. And yes, there's some difference between some of it, but it's like endurance, intensity, same ideas, the same kind of threshold things apply. Yeah, totally.
But at the end of the day, I'm trying to go into clinical medicine, and so hopefully I could kind of bring like a practice. That's kind of like where my future, I think I'm trying to head towards, kind of like a practice where it's with ortho surgeons. I'd be the primary care kind of provider in the scenario. Have PTs, nutritionists.
Right,
like
you move them to a specialist, but you're the first person kind of seeing somebody, identifying what the issue is, and then you can.
But ideally, all in house. So that it's like a gym, you know what I mean? Like a little like hub to have like weekend classes on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a great place to just kind of be a one-stop shop to not only get your nutritional fixes, your physical therapy stuff, but if you like severely like tear a tendon or something, we can help you with that. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's kind of where I think my trajectory is going towards.
That's a good long-term plan.
I think so. I hope so.
Okay. You just need a few colleagues to work with you there, but I think you can make it happen. Excellent.
Next 3 years, that's what it's all about.
That's a pretty quick trajectory for that. Okay, well, so that's the networking. Yeah, okay, got it.
Networking, no, this is like a 10-year plan.
It's a 10-year plan. I was going to say, if you can make that happen in 3 years, that'll be very impressive. Since you're going to move out there, what do you think you're going to find there, and how's it going to be? We've talked about that a little bit already, and I think we can already tell some of the things you're going to miss here. Like Dirt Church and like riding up with those groups in Long Island, but I'm sure there probably are. Well, I don't know if there's a group right now. Wilkes-Barre is pretty small.
Yeah,
it's not big. There's probably a bike shop or two out there, but I'm sure you've scouted out a little bit already. But what do you expect to find there? What are you gonna think it's gonna be better? What are you gonna miss?
So the good thing is, I'm gonna miss immensely everyone here. Like genuinely, the community here is amazing. It's beautiful and diverse. There's so many people out here, and like not having all those people is gonna be so heartbreaking. Like, I mean, I love going on IW, just running into people. That's the best thing. LIE, same thing. I just run into people. I'm like, oh hey, what's up? How's it going? And we catch up, and it's great. So I think I'm gonna miss that the most. But luckily, I have family out there, so I've experienced with the area. So I know that the roads are beautiful, perfect. Yeah. So it's just endless farm roads. I'm gonna enjoy that for sure. I think there's bound to be group rides. I gotta find them, but eventually when I do find them, it'll be great. Like
Yeah.
honestly, I think there's gonna be less of a cycling culture, like we talked about. Like Electric City is like the only event, and it's like a brand new event, so there's not even any insurance.
This is talking road. There might be some off-road stuff that is not on my radar, but
Yeah.
again, it's just not the most popular area. But it's beautiful in terms of like you get elevation changes, you get some good roads, and yeah, not
Wait,
much traffic maybe.
You said it, off-road. I think that's going to be the big thing I'm looking forward to, an ability to jump back into that. Like,
Yeah.
I miss off-road. It's great. Like, as much as like putting down power in the middle of the woods kind of sucks, right? Because like in a race, you're by yourself. It's not a race of like chess. It's a race of who's the fittest and who can get through the course the best, right?
Yeah.
So as much as it's a departure from road racing, I think it's something that I'm missing, and so I want to do that again. Like I said, I don't know if I said it on camera, but cyclocross is going to be my thing this year as well. So
Okay.
I'm going to get into that. I'm sure gravel will come into the mix at some point. Like I'm pushing it. I'm like, I don't want to be part of it, but I know I'm going to be part of it eventually.
Now let's talk. You don't want to be part of it. So here's a little of a touchy subject that is always on my, and I don't think we have really touched on that yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you what I think you're thinking, but you can tell me what you're actually thinking. And it's probably, so here's what I'm feeling a little bit, that this is something that's, the gravel is the current it thing or the in thing, and it's been pushed by the industry, it's been pushed as this kind of grassroots thing. And I think it's gotten to the point now where I think it's obviously still growing, and the pandemic has put us on everything, but like something everything kind of, but there's gravel bikes now, there's industries, there's these already legendary events, despite the fact that only run for 10 years, like what is it called now? Unbound, I think it's called officially, the former Dirty Kansas.
Yeah, Dirty
Leadville, which is really this long-time mountain bike race, but which you could probably do on a gravel bike. But there's like all these, I know people have done it, but it's a mountain bike race, I would say. But anyway, New York City. It's growing, and I did like the last couple of years, well, not 2020, there's a great one in Pennsylvania, which I cannot think of the name right now.
Iron Cross?
Iron Cross is actually a really long-standing one that predates the gravel boom. Like a cross race that's just longer than the usual cross race. But I've heard that's like involves hike a bike, and depending on even if you're really skilled, there's gonna be hike a bike involved.
Up a mountain, yeah.
So
And you get a whiskey shot at the top.
Right, yeah. And I think there's like, what is it, like Monkey Knife Fight in Pennsylvania. It has like a fairly, in that same similar area. It has a long-standing tradition, and unpaved is what's called. Unpaved. Right?
Okay,
Get it? Okay. Yeah. So in Pennsylvania, out of Lewisburg, great event. They've changed the format a little bit, but it's fantastic also. So I think there are a lot of people who love it, and it's in part, I think, because some of them are races, but they're also more about finishing, right, rather than necessarily about where you come in or the time. But then it's like with everything, like with mountain biking, and I think it comes from this grassroots and more relaxed environment that was maybe the original idea to some extent, or exploring nature and roads that haven't been explored. But also what we see now is that, to some extent, my take on it is that it's starting to kill itself, or its original vibe, by become professional. And if something becomes professional, where former pro racers are racing it now and more because it gets more attention in the media, and with that, of course, you're also going to change it to becoming about the same things that road cycling is about, which is doing well, performing, and where you place, and having to train for it more, right? And it's losing, or it's going to have this identity crisis a little bit here in a year or two, or maybe. And I don't know what you're thinking, and you were saying you have been trying to avoid it. Is it for what reasons? Let's hear about that.
Okay. The reason why I'm avoiding it is because it just seems like, I think, like you said, it's more about finishing rather than racing to finish. I kind of I like the racing appeal of things, but part of me doesn't want to taint it, like you said, also with this like mentality of I need to win.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's going to be for me, right? If I go into gravel, I'm going to
And that's how I did those two races too. Like, I guess I'm here to have fun, But when I'm here, I want to empty the tank and like give it everything I have.
I just drove 3 hours. I'm gonna empty the tank. Like
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Maybe that's the mentality that, like you said, we bring, and maybe that's not what's wanted there, right?
Yeah. But I mean, like for example, I've heard this from like old racers before. Like, oh, I got into the race thing and it was a little too much for me. I got like wrapped up in it, and so I had to stop. Right? I think it's like you need to learn how to find a balance and how to kind of like take a step back. You know, I think gravel racing is a great place where you can have this sort of like fondo kind of like effect where it's just everyone's there to ride the bike, enjoy the bike, celebrate the bike on these gnarly roads that we've never run before, right? And as long as there's going to be a few people like racing for it, I think everyone's going to have a little bit of fun. But I agree, like especially like EF guys, right? Like starting to do these like gravel races, right?
Like the American pro scene, like
American
some of them
pro
jumping
scenes.
into it, right? More retired pros who are still kind of training like pros, maybe a little less, but they're still pros by talent and by training, sort of, you know. Ted King is another one who, yes, maybe they're not fully living like pros anymore, but they still do a lot more than the average amateur, and they have the talent, obviously.
I feel like especially like pros have this advantage like, compared to amateurs, because amateurs don't know what they can do. Pros know what they can do, and so they will push themselves and keep going. You know what I mean? But you know that's why I'm kind of like averse to gravel. Like I don't want to like make it. I don't want to be part of the people that make it into this like intense racing issue or whatever. But also like I want to keep doing the things that I like doing. So I think that's where cyclocross and road comes
which is more
play.
Race and competition focused.
Yeah, everyone
the
there.
occasional gravel race maybe, or the occasional like long mountain bike race or something, but not.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I kind of liken it to like, I'm again not shaming lower categories, but like say a Cat 5 race, right? It will splinter, and only a certain group of people will compete for the finish, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think we saw that. I don't know how much you saw the Cat 5 race at Reynolds, but like
100%,
2 laps in, it's like 20 guys in the front, or 10 or something, depending on, you know, because of course technical is wind, and you know, the Cat 5 you get like the guy who won it twice is like an Olympic level rower, you know?
Right.
Like,
The spectrum is nuts.
The spectrum is nuts, right? From the guy who's like got 3 kids and like wants to try this thing and like is a little overweight, does it for fitness purposes, and like just wants to try it out, right? Which is like, I think kind of the idea of why USA Cycling has allowed people to jump in the Cat 4, so that if you're like really strong, you can start riding 4, and then 5, so you can have more. But that's always the eternal issue. And then some of those people get put off by, well, I don't want to. That's my soapbox. So you continue with yours. So
no. I was just saying that like it's like the lower categories, like it's a race to finish, right? And it's in the upper categories that you have like actual competition where everyone has been training all year and stuff like that. And that's where I think road and cyclocross kind of come into play. I mean, like the people who are doing road are most likely going to go do cyclocross in the fall season, right? And so they have the engines, they have the year of training to like back them up, right? Whereas gravel, it's like the whole spectrum, and I want to enjoy it, right? And so like I don't want to bring my own like competition to it.
No, that makes sense. I think if you feel like you bring a little too much edginess and competition there, and I think you're right, you probably would maybe, and I think I did too. But I think there's also a place for that. That there's a front group that's competitive, and then there's a lot of people who ride to finish, or ride to have fun, or ride with friends, or you know.
It's all about balance, I think.
Like I gotta be like honest too. Like I was like the guy definitely who was like show up with a couple of friends, a couple of teammates, and like, oh, let's ride this thing together. And then there's the first dirt section, I'm on the front, and there's the first climb, I'm on the front, and like, I'm not gonna stand by the road here and wait for them either. So, and all of a sudden the competitive nature takes over, you know, and like I can't see them, I'm gonna hang in this group, and then all of a sudden it's a race, you know. And then I think you have that mindset or you don't, and I think there should be a place for everybody, right? And I think the great thing, of course, about it is that you finish and you get a time, you get a minute or something like that. And in the Cat 5 race, especially in a crit, you just paid $30, $40, and a lap or two in, you might have gotten dropped by the field, and then maybe you even get pulled in some crits, you know. And that's a really unwelcoming environment in some ways if you were there for the first time. That either motivates people to train more, or it's like, I hate this, you know, or like I don't like it, and that's a very sink or swim kind of environment, right? And you react to that maybe positively. You say, I just got to work more, or like, okay, I can turn, but I don't have the fitness, or the other way around, I have the fitness, but I can't turn, or whatever it is that I need to, or I just did a stupid move and then I exhausted myself. I think that everybody reacts to it differently, and some people are put off by it. And I always joke a little bit like that. I think a lot of the gravel riders or racers are more the retired road racers who are like get tired of the competition. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just more of a, if you want the more relaxed vibe, yeah, maybe that is more a great outlet for you, right? Where you still gotta train and you're gonna get a great workout and you're gonna have some fitness and it's an accomplishment, right? But it's a little bit of a different vibe, at least in like, well, to be honest, probably even races like Unbound and Dirty Cans isn't anymore, because I think at this point, I don't know if you still have to, it's a lottery, but I think a lot of the people who show up for that are very fit. You have to finish, I think the finishing time was like 12 hours, something like that, longer.
Come on.
Right, so it's like 200 miles, right? It's not for just the average dude who wants to chill and have fun, you know?
Right.
You're not gonna finish 200 miles over rolling hills in Kansas on dirt just having fun, you know? So,
that being said, if it does become competitive, I will jump right into gravels.
So maybe you have to go to Unbound. You have to go to some of these things.
I know. I want to. I really want to, because it's part of it is also just like an achievement. I feel as well. I mean, like getting Leadville done, like that's kind of big. I want that.
As a mountain bike guy,
yeah.
Sounds terrible. Like at like 8,000 feet of elevation or higher, and it sounds terrible. I've raced at like 7,000 feet once on the road, and it's not great.
I get migraines, and last time I was at elevation, I started getting migraine. Literally came back down from elevation. I was in Denver.
Yeah.
We went to the Garden of Gods, right? So that's a little bit higher, and we came back down to Denver because like I was like migraining aggressively. So I don't even know what happens at elevation for me. So we'll see one day.
But if that happens again, you might have to come up with a strategy for dealing with that. But on that note, like, so that's for you, the gravel scene. One of the things on my list is like, you're 26,
Yes.
You feel old yourself, but you're still a younger rider. And you're another rider who, like the many people, you talk to someone like Charlie Essendorf, who back then it was like you started as a junior, you kind of went through the system, and then either you became really good or maybe you retired or you became master. And things have changed. Like so many people come into cycling, whether it is road or mountain bike or cross at like a later age in life, right? And you also really kind of started the racing part when you were already in college, right? How has that been like, as like not having gone through that kind of junior system where it's been like a sport in high school that you grew up with, discovering it more in your later life? Has it been easy to get into it? Has it been difficult? Have you found it to be more of a, I think I wrote in my note, like an old white men's sport, or have you found it like that your dad could be doing instead of golf, right? A lot of people talk about cycling being the new golf. How has that been? Has it been off-putting or more interesting? Or in New York City might be different too than other places in the country, but how was that as like a younger guy? What made it appealing, and did it stay appealing once you got to know the scene a little bit better?
Well, okay, getting into the scene for me particularly was super easy, but I mean, cis white male, I kind of have everything as easy as possible. Like hands down, no barriers for me, right? So as much as there was that, the cycling scene is very welcoming, right? And there is room. And there's room to be made for other people as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main thing that needs to be said about that sort of conversation. We need to make space for everyone that wants to be included. And as right now, 100% it's an old man white sport. 100%.
I mean, USA Cycling at least has statistics on the gender. I don't know if there's statistics on like race and ethnicity or whatever. They definitely have, like, I think it's like a 90-10 or 85-15 split on men to women.
On men to women, that's the next thing. I mean, I'm not saying that organizers don't know what they're doing, but like, for example, last week at Radnall's, right, like the mixing together juniors with the women led to one woman breaking her arm and another one like getting pretty bad scrapes and like wounds, you know what I mean? And so like there needs to be appreciation for what we have, and there needs to be appreciation for what we can bring into the sport as well. Women, trans families, on top of people of color, all need to be represented in the culture. And I think we as like the white people in the culture, we need to make room. You know? We do need to make space for that stuff. I think Alex is making a great move. I think for the next weekend he's rectified that whole junior women situation.
Yeah, so I didn't hear I heard a little bit about it, and I got like into kind of an exchange on Facebook with someone who was like very visibly upset about the situation. I was like, this was, you know, I'm not gonna repeat the words, but like, and you know, you get it. I didn't know all the details of the situation because I went got coffee with my teammates right after my race, and I think the women's and juniors had sort of started. And I hadn't seen anything yet, but they were racing on the same course, I think, in separate fields. But
they let the women first, and then a couple minutes later, the juniors went
as juniors have a reputation for being excitable, and they are, and maybe and people of very different ability levels. Again, a more beginners women's group.
Yeah.
Juniors are beginners, but also excited, and a lot of them get pushed by their coaches to race, which is great too, right? And they race, and probably unsurprisingly something happened apparently, and that sounds like something pretty bad.
I don't know what happened, but there was some sort of tussle. Yeah, essentially, like the juniors caught on to the women's field, and the fast women and fast juniors caused chaos. Which is going to happen, and unfortunately, right? Alex was constrained by the
race director, right?
Yes.
And there's a limit, and this is the classic story, right?
All the time.
You're trying to maximize the number of people you can get because the race directors need to break even, right?
And he does the best he can.
He's offering a women's field, which not everybody does. Should it be paired with the juniors? Probably not. I think that's the conclusion he's also come to. He's changed it now. You know, everybody's learning, I think. And you know, we could argue that it should just be a default to have the separate women's field. And I know that some of the women on my team didn't start because they knew that was combined and that was a great idea. And rightfully so, like some of the women might also not say, I don't want to race with the beginner women, like if I'm in the 1, 2, or 3, you know, because neither would I as a 1, 2 rider necessarily want to race a 1 through 5 field on the men's side, right? So, and I think that's right. Changes are being made, but you know,
I think we need to further this, create more opportunity, you know, let people in ways like this, right? Podcasts are one of the best ways to just talk about things, right?
Just talk about it. Yeah. I don't know if we can say. I always say like, yeah, you can talk about it. Ideally, you can change something too. And it's hard because, especially in a place like New York City, the race directors are struggling to break even often, you know, because of the permit costs and the marshals and all that they need and all of that, and they have limited race times, right? So they can only run 2 or 3, 4 fields. But it's kind of like that. If you build it, they'll come. You have to offer the women's field because otherwise you won't have any women. Of course not. If you don't have women's fields, then nobody can raise a field. Or if it's combined like that, then there are going to be some people who are more cautious, and that's where I get that. You know, and I think
we can't expect people to break through. We need to create space for them, and that's all we have to do.
Yeah,
I think, and everyone will come.
I think you're right that, you know, it's also not just in the U.S. everywhere around the world, a more white sport, right? So it's easier and more acceptable, I think, in that way too. I think New York's cycling community is, as far as I can tell, again, there probably need to be some better numbers on that, but it's as diverse as they come, and probably the most diverse. We're racing with state champions for the national champions, I should say, from the Dominican Republic and Guyana, and all kinds of cultures here represented, which is great.
Which is a byproduct of the city.
But it's a byproduct of the city, right? And it's great that way, and I think the more they see from their culture, then the more come into it too. But that's not the case everywhere, certainly. And in New York, I think that can be done better still. And I think places like, I always come back to Star Trek because it's one of those student development programs where it's obvious that they have a pretty diverse cast of writers, and that's fantastic.
Yeah. And you know, that brings up a topic of like role models, right? When you have these role models, when you have people 1, 2, 3s who are people of color and stuff like that look like you're more likely to get into the sport.
Yeah,
you're more likely to say
the same culture or whatever. Right?
Yeah. I mean,
speak the same language.
Exactly. I distinctly remember like being not like a little mountain biker and being like, I can never race like road. I can never be a like professional athlete or something like that. Yes, I can. Yeah. So can anyone can.
So did you need role models, or was it just there's enough people looking like me riding around here that this is something that's appealing, or did you have like this is the guy? Or...
I don't know if there was this is the guy. I don't think there was, but yeah, I think for me, it was the community that drove me to cycling. It's the social aspect of it, and the whole idea that like it was a society based on the bike.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I love the bicycle. My earliest memories are on the bike. My best memories are on the bike.
Yeah.
And I think all my doors are going to be opened by the bike. So
Yeah, you create memories through it. You make connections through it, which New York City and apparently the med school life is all about connections too. And I think that can open a lot of doors too.
Oh yeah.
Final words on maybe what we can't. Well, we've already just talked about a thing that we can do better as a community. Anything else? I think we've touched a little bit on just traffic, transportation, safety issues a little bit. I think we've talked a lot about that. Anything else that comes to mind that we can do better, or what do you love about the community that we haven't talked about yet? Any final words?
I think the thing that I love the most about the community is how open everyone is and how accepting everyone is. As genuinely, as much as there are barriers in every part of society, like cycling is one of the few places where we are just like happy to have you ride with us, right? And so I love that about the community, and that's going to be the biggest thing that I miss about this whole New York City is the cycling community, genuinely. But I think what we can do better is, like we said, make space, create these role models so that the next generation has someone to look up to. And if the more diverse I think that we have a community, I think the more fruitful we'll be, the more creativity we'll have, the more changes will happen, and I think it'll be better for everyone involved. So I think that's kind of what we need to be doing in cycling right now.
Awesome. I think that could be the final words. Any Cunningham Park's going to continue?
Yeah, hell yeah! Come to Cunningham Park. Come ride.
Come there. Visit him in Wilkes-Barre.
Yes.
And,
if anyone, if I can come ride with me to Wilkes-Barre, I'll find you all the best roads.
in 3 to 10 years, you can get your sports medicine fix from Jacob Borkowski.
Yes,
so look
sir.
out for that. He's already gone. No, he's not allowed to give you any diagnosis, I think.
Not yet. No. I'm not a doctor.
Okay, not a doctor. Yeah.
I honestly don't know. Everyone keeps asking me when can I call myself doctor, but I think starting July you can ask me for medical advice.
Okay. At least an official consultation. That's how you're gonna start it. So look out for him. Look out for him at races from the Wilmington Grand Prix to local races here to maybe some gravel in the future.
Definitely, yes.
Jacobs, was a pleasure. Really happy to have had another Queens resident too, and proudly so, and representing Long Island in mountain biking, and we'll talk more dirt and mountain biking in the future too. Thank you
so much, man.